Alright guys, we're back. We got the pump in finally. So now we're ready to do valve body, separator plate, accumulator, and servos. So home stretch right here. Don't know if I got enough energy to put the pan and everything on tonight, because I still got to get the old pan gasket off the pan. It's baked on pretty good, but we'll get as far as we can here. See what we got. So try and get this big sucker up on the bench now that I've got the pump and everything in. Okay, there we go. So let's see here. Alright, so a little trick I got here. I'm going to get my small pocket screwdriver. There's a check ball in the case that's captured. It's a captured check ball for the reverse, low and reverse clutches. And I pry the retainer out and grab the ball out of it. Usually, since I already had one laying around, but usually I'll take that one out and it gives a firmer reverse engagement. It's just a builder preference. Some people don't even fool with it. I like a good engagement feel. Usually I'll take that one out and use it to plug the fourth accumulator off. But I already had one sitting here on the bench that I used for that earlier. So that's just a free one for next time. So first thing we're going to do now, make sure our band anchor's in all the way. We're going to put our park pawl bracket in, and since we had to take that out to get the low and reverse piston out, so basically the park pawl goes through it, and just flop the park pawl plunger down in there and put the bolts in it that way. So let's see, they're in my bolt tray here somewhere. Here they are. Just the two short 13mm headed bolts. And do one here. And one is way down in there. It's kind of a pain to get to in a way. And the whole time that you're doing this, the thing is fighting you because it's spring loaded, so that doesn't help either, but we'll get it. There we go. Finally wants to pop in after a minute or two of fooling with it. There we go. And so the next thing we're going to do is put some Trans-Gel in the case holes where the check balls are going to go, which is just one on this one. The rest are on the valve body that's set itself. And so there's just, like I said, there's just one that goes in the case portion. This screw is probably the hardest one in this area of the case to get started because it's down in. You have to kind of get it started with your fingers first, and you got the spring pushing against the bracket trying to take the alignment away from you. So we got it now. Okay, so now our park pawl works good. It's in park. That locked in. So that's good. Alright, so one check ball goes in the case. Goes right near this fourth accumulator piston. There's a little dimple. Just put a small tiny dab of Trans-Gel in there. And we might as well just use this check ball here that we just took out. We'll put it in here. One we took out of the reverse, low and reverse piston area. So we got that going. Now, what we need to do, I made these out of old valve body bolts. They call these Z-bolts. They're just a valve body bolt with the head cut off, and then I put a notch in the end so you could use a flathead screwdriver. So they go in specific locations. On this one, it's the top left corner, and then the second one down on the right hand corner. And what these do, they're like alignment dowels, and they help you to get your valve body gasket, separator plate, and all that hooked up, and get them in the right positions, basically. So we're going to go with the case gasket and put it right down over our pins, our Z-bolts, just like that. And the other one's going to have to wait because, like I said, we've got a new plate. So, got the new Transgo plate, which is hardened. It's a zinc-coated plate. If I can get it out here, hold on. It's getting hung up. Okay, so it's a zinc-coated plate. It's stronger. It resists check balls hitting it, so forth. So we're going to drill this to shift a little bit better. Let's see, where's my drill? Here it is, right here. Okay, get my drill out. Alright. Okay, plug my drill in. Now, they only give you a couple different sizes here. They give you, I believe, an 86 thousandths and maybe a 90 and a 93. So you got a 93 here, and it tells you a couple different spots that need to be 93, drilled to 93 thousandths. And so we're going to do that first, and then we're going to go ahead and drill it like it needs to be for the shift kit. So let's see where we're at here. Alright, so some of these may already be 93 or real close. That one was probably 92. It went through pretty easily. That one's already bigger. We're going to do this one here, 93. Okay. And let's see what else we got here. These ones come out to 93 as well. That one, and then the one below it. Okay, got my screwdriver stuck to it. Alright, now the 2-3 hole needs to be bigger than 93 even. So we're going to go 93, and then we're going to upsize it again with the next bit. So these are all the ones that we've drilled so far that need to be 93. I like 110 for my third feed, especially with a Corvette servo. Kind of gets everything in check together. So they don't give you a 93 bit, but I've got a 93, I'm sorry, a 104 bit. I believe it's 104, 102, something like that. It works well. Alright, so third feed is right here. Alright, make sure there's no burr on it. Drill it from the back side a little bit. Alright, so we got that taken care of. So now we got to put our pop-in filters in, brand new screen filters, and they go on the bottom side, on the case side. So how this works is the big one goes in this big slot right here on the edge, and they just pop in. They've got little fingers that hold them in or whatever. That's how they work. And then the other one goes up near the end. And sometimes they can test you, especially on this plate, because this plate is thicker than a factory plate. So sometimes they'll give you a little bit of a headache getting them to pop in all the way. Alright, so we can drop that onto our Z-bolts. Get it all set up there. And then our top valve body gasket. Go over the Z-bolts right there just like that. Okay, so that's good. Alright, now I'm going to get the electrical harness and I'm going to clean it real quick just to make sure that inside the conduit and so forth is clean, because there's a lot of gunk that can hide in that housing, that cable housing. So I'm going to plug this up to my air real quick. Take my air gun off there. Okay. Okay. Alright, so that's clean, ready to go now. We've got a small, tiny screen filter in the TCC solenoid. I'm going to get it with my snap ring pliers because it's kind of down in there. It just comes and turns out. Yeah, there was oil all over this thing, which, you know, it's part of the cleaning process. So, the new little screen filter goes in, just turns to lock in, and there we go. Alright, so take our little 10mm bolts out of here and pop our torque converter lockup solenoid into the pump, and it will fit pretty tightly. And run our 10mm bolts down in here, and we'll set this aside for the time being. Let me take this 13 off here. Alright, so that's ready there. And we are ready for the valve body. I'm going to put the, where did I put the manual valve? There it is. Okay. This is the manual valve. This is what's hooked up to your shift linkage, essentially. And it controls just basic hydraulic flow. So we'll slide that right in there. It'll bottom out. That's okay, because we got to put check balls in it for right now. So we're going to put a dab of trans gel just where the check balls go. There's one. There's 2, 3, 4, 5. Come on. Okay, I know I'm missing one. It's right in front of me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right next to that one. And then the 7th one is in the case. So, we're good here. Let me get my check balls. Where's my magnetic pickup? Okay. Alright, we can put our check balls in one by one. Trans gel will hold it. And that way we'll be able to turn it upside down and install it without them rolling all over the place. It helps a whole lot. It's not as necessary when you're, you know, building it on a bench, but you know, it does help. especially if you're doing it overhead, if it's still in the car or something like that. So, all right, so we got that. Now our manual valve has to ease back out this way, and the link that goes between it and the shift rod, or the shift linkage, is right here. It's got a kind of a crook on the end, so it's got to feed into the park paw linkage. And we'll put this down over the Z-bolts and get it all centered up. And at the same time, this is kind of the tricky part, I guess, because at the same time you have to get your manual valve hooked up on it. At the same time that it's going down. So it's kind of a tricky process there. There we go. Right down on my Z-bolt so I know that it's centered correctly. Let's see here. There is some backtracking that you have to do on these particularly. And well, part of it is we got to remove the check balls, Greg. They're basically they seat into the separator plate, and I'm sure you've seen them before, or you may be. I don't know what you're actually questioning, but you know, there's between 6 or 7, depending on model, on the valve body side. What about what? I just use the trans gel to hold them in place so they don't roll all over the place when I turn the valve body upside down. So kind of makes life a little bit easier. So I'm going to put a couple bolts in here just to kind of get this anchored so that I can work on this force motor. I have to take the force motor off to get the electrical connector punched through the case. This is a 4L60E, Greg. Let's see here. So put our 10. Just tighten it down just a little bit so that it'll not move or anything. And we'll switch this out for an 8mm. Wherever I set it, I can never find them. Always walk away somehow. Ah, here it is. Perfect. Okay. Alright. So just set this right down here. It's going to go right back in. We're going to put our case connector, electrical connector through. Like that. We'll flip this back up. Sometimes it'll stay, sometimes it'll be a pain and get in the way. This time it's being good. And we'll put our keeper on the force motor. And the bolt back in, the 8mm bolt. And we'll run the screw in. Basically, that bracket serves two purposes. It indexes it as well as holds it in. So it kind of gets the electrical connector clocked to the right position. So now that that's in, let's see here. We're going to put the accumulator on. This is the 1-2 accumulator. And let's see here. I need the correct bolts for it. Let's see here. It takes one really long one. Let's see where it's at here. Here's one of them. And one other one. Let's see, they're all 10mm on this. Okay, perfect. So we got those set up. Now I need 3 8mm short bolts out of my collection here. And what these are for the hold down plate that's over the low and reverse clutches. So we're going to take our tiny little temporary bolts out of here. And bolt placing on a 4L60E, it's very critical because there's different length bolts, and if you put the wrong one in the wrong spot, it will actually lock the gear train, and you'll be all out of sorts because it'll lock the sun shell. So you'll have a bind up, you'll have just second and fourth only, and all kinds of goofy stuff happening. So definitely want to make sure, if you don't know where they go, you can find bolt charts online. You can find, in fact, they're in the Transgo instructions where they go. So this is the hold down plate. It's just a steel plate, support plate, whatever you want to call it. And it goes over top the valve body gaskets and the separator plate, over top the low and reverse feed area. If you don't put that on, everything will work fine, except you'll have a slipping reverse. So if it came with it, put it back on. Should have came with it though. So those are 3 8mm bolts, and that plate, along with the Z-bolts, helps center everything up as far as your 2 gaskets and your Z-bolts help center it up too. Accumulator does too, in a sense, but you're kind of usually fighting a spring when you do the accumulator, so I wouldn't really rely on it to center stuff up. Alright, so we're back to 10 for this, back to 10mm. It's a lot of switching. Probably ideal to have two separate guns. Alright, so accumulator's on. That looks good. Alright. Can flip this back up out of the way a little bit so that we can stick the valve body back on. We are getting awfully close to buttoning this thing up. So sometimes I like to take this detent spring off that rides on what they call the rooster comb, because it kind of puts everything in a bind, but it's not that huge of a deal really. It's just sometimes kind of a headache. So right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to scoot this back and lay out all my different size bolts so I can pick them up pretty easily. So it's just one of them little steps that goes a long way and will help you. Plus we have the dipstick stop. So they've got several different length bolts that you got to look at, you know, just to make sure you don't accidentally put one in the wrong spot and either break the case, you know, run it through past the bottom of the hole or something dumb like that. So it takes just a couple more seconds just to lay your stuff out and check out what you got. Make sure you got the right amount and this and that. So okay. So, good on that. And, alright, so basically, you got 3 long bolts. 3 long ones go all the way through the pressure manifold switch, which I'll have to keep one out because I've got the Z-bolt in one of them, so that's going to go in the top one. You got 2 of the shoulder ones. These are, they usually label them like D on the diagram, and they go in the area where there's no, I guess the valve body's just thinner as a whole in that area. So that's where that goes. And basically, oh, dropped it. So there's the majority of them, they call them C in a lot of the books, and a lot of the, I think Transgo calls it C. You've got like all these mosquitoes. You got 9 of them all together. So that's going to be the majority. So really, once you get the first couple in, you know, you're pretty much home free. Which I'm putting a couple C bolts in right here. There's C's all across the top. The top, I call this part over here. And we'll run a couple of these down. They don't need to be mega tight because it is aluminum. You know, you don't want to bust nothing or anything like that. So just you know, play it safe. Use common sense, so forth. So let's see here, what do we got left? We got 3 of these. That's going to be 1, 2, 3. Wonder, hold on a second. This is the same length. Didn't seem like it wanted to work right. Oh, that's why. It's 3 of the 8mm heads. I didn't look at the head size. So not sure why they use so many different size bolts, but it's just I guess one of their, whatever way they wanted to design it, that's how they did it. So let's see, got a C here. Alright, and then a C right here. Alright, so what do we got left? We got the long one there that goes in there. We got the one for the other Z bolt. And then we got 2 C's left. It's going to be here. And let's see, it's going to be right here. Good deal. Run this 8 in real quick. Alright, and we'll go ahead and take our Z bolt out from the top corner. Okay, and we'll put this one on. This is our dipstick stop. Flip our wiring harness down in the meantime. Basically, that keeps the dipstick from going too far down in the pan, giving you a bad reading. Okay, and we'll take our other Z bolt out. I need my skinnier screwdriver to do that. This one here. Sometimes these Z bolts get hung up in here, sometimes they don't. This one looks like it's going to cooperate. Maybe, maybe not. Where did I put that? Here it is. Might have to take this pressure switch off to get the get that Z-bolt out. Sometimes it'll sneak out, sometimes it won't. Let's see if we can get it where it's just loosened up a little bit. No, we're gonna have to take it all the way off. That sucks, but whatever. Happens every once in a while. So there's our other Z-bolt. Pressure switch back down. We'll go ahead and put the long bolt in where the Z-bolt came out. Okay. And the 2/8. Put the 8s back in. Put our 10 back on and run the big 10s back down. And then we'll go up to it. Make sure they're all tight. Let's see, the 10. Alright. Check the 8s real quick. Alright, put our Z-bolts back for next time. Flip our electrical harness down and plug the stuff in. Get it all situated. Plug the solenoids in. So we're getting close on this unit here. Alright, there we go on that. Alright, so we'll go ahead, put our servo in, and we'll probably call it a night there. Let me go ahead real quick and put on the O-ring on the input shaft. Brown O-ring. Without that, you won't have lockup. So we got to put that on. Definitely can't forget that. Alright, so servo. Like I said in an earlier video, I first do it without the return spring, mainly because that return spring will lie to you on band clearance. So just a personal preference, something I like to do. To me, it helps get a better feel. So we'll put a little transdil in the servo bore for the new seals to ride on and help it get in there a little bit easier. Alright, so put it in there just like that, and put the fourth piston on and put the cover on with no O-ring. So put it on just like this, squish it down, and we're going to put the lock ring on it. Almost like we're done with it, but we're going to put the lock ring on it and see how much cover travel there is. If the cover goes down way under that, which it doesn't look too terribly bad. Let's see where we're at, because that is all the way compressed. So if the cover has just that little bit of tolerance in it, that's okay. So we'll pull it back out. Alright, we'll put the 4th piston on it. We'll put some trans gel on the spring, put the spring in. Servo goes down in. Cover seal goes on the cover. Push it down in, seat it a couple times. And we'll push the snap ring down in. And again, I like to put my screwdriver in there and turn it just to make sure that it is seated in the groove all the way. That one's got good band clearance. So this unit is pretty much ready to roll. Really all that's left now is the filter, the pan, obviously, pan gasket and so forth, and the mount. And you know, that's really all there is to it. There's not an awful lot to one of these. I guess I say that because I've done them so many times, but yeah, it's ready to rock and roll. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Within the past couple of videos, the live stream videos, hopefully you guys learned a lot about it, how they work, and you know, if you have any questions, just feel free to drop a line.